Welcome to our Soul and the City podcast. This is a community podcast which endeavors to make artistic strolls with fun, one city at a time, but more importantly, absorb, dissect, and reflect socially aware dialogues together with local wordsmiths, event organizers, artists, and art enthusiasts. My name is Soar, author and social innovator, and I will be co-hosting each episode with a team of international hosts and guests in the attempt to ignite and incite universal and individual insights.
We're starting now officially. Hola, everybody. that's the most I can say. No, I do understand Spanish, but I don't speak it. Welcome to a fun, witty, and engaged journey around the world. This is our third winter edition podcast called Tapas, Bralettes, Barcelona, and Sex. It's a very strong title for this winter edition. We have with us amazing guests, mainly migrants and expats living in Barcelona, along with my great co-host, Daniel. Daniel is a literature teacher at an international school in Prague, where he lives with his family, and he's a co-host of Soul and the City WEPodcast, in which we try to debunk city stereotypes, raise awareness on social issues, dissect and highlight important aspects related to the artistic and the international community in each city.
And Soar is a polyglot, a social innovator, and an ambassador for multilingual dialogue, founder of Soul in the City, an international undertaking of artistic, educational, and entertaining projects.
And we have this morning with us Makis, Luke, Kelly, and Kriste. And I would like you guys to take 1 minute or so to introduce yourselves to our listeners. We start with Kelly, and then we go with Kriste, and then Luke and Makis.
Hi guys, I'm Kelly. I'm also a teacher at an international school, but I am a spoken word performer, and I run open mic nights in Barcelona now. So that's sort of encompassing a little bit of everything: storytelling, spoken word, and music as well.
Kriste, yes, hi guys. So just in short, I have different passions. I'm also an entrepreneur and a freelancer, but I guess here I'm also a dancer and a dance teacher for many, many years, and in various styles. And I've been living in Barcelona for 4 years now. It's going to be 4 years. Yeah, thanks.
And yeah, so I'm Luke. I am same as Kelly. I run an open mic night here in Barcelona. I'm an actor, director, sort of theatre company. Run a theatre company back in the UK, and yeah, so I set up a night here pretty much kind of along the same lines as Kelly, really kind of open to any discipline, anything anyone wants to do at whatever level of development, not about being kind of finished and polished, but if anyone just wants to get up and do something they've never done before, I just really wanted to give that space for people to be able to do it.
Hi, thank you for the invitation, first of all, and congratulations for all what you do. My name is Makis. I'm from Greece, but I live in Barcelona for the last 14 years. And I'm a poet, slammer, spoken word artist, and I'm more into poetry slam movement. I'm organizing here, it used to be a monthly event. Now it's taking more time because of the situation. I used to run the poetry slam in Barcelona in English. So it's called Poetry Slam, a monthly event. I ran the Poetry Slam in Greece monthly. And I organize as well an annual event, during the Sessions Festival, which is a stage for more experimental stuff. And I'm co-organizer of the European Poetry Slam this year and the World Poetry Slam Championship, which is going to be next year in Brussels in September.
Awesome. Before Daniel will introduce us to Barcelona, just a quick question. Do you guys know each other?
I know Makis.
I've
been to...
Everybody knows Makis.
I don't know.
But the event that he was just talking about, the Duende sessions, I was at that really recently, and you've came to a few of my nights as well and performed there as well. So yeah. And we performed together at another night at Enter the Coronavirus. So yeah, we've met a few times now.
Kriste, I'm sorry, you feel probably in a bit of minority there.
Yeah.
It was this is I have to tell everyone, this is a very special event, a podcast, and gathering for me and hopefully for the entire community, because there could have not been a podcast about Barcelona without the dance and without the music. And Kriste represents for us the dancing and the flavor, the beautiful flavor of Barcelona. So
Awesome.
It was a must. It was a must. Okay, Daniel, you have the mic.
So Barcelona, when John Lennon broached the musical question, "Imagine there's no heaven," we wonder if he had been reading the poetry of Joan Maragall, one of Barcelona's celebrated artists. In his Cant Espiritual, or spiritual song, Maragall wonders, if the world is already so beautiful, Lord, if one looks at it with your peace within our eyes, what more can you give us in another life? The poet goes on to esteem the jealousy he feels for Barcelona, the cradling surround of verdant hills and golden beaches and eternal blue of sky and sea. For Maragall, this is eternity enough. But 30 years later, after the horrors of a civil war and the struggle with fascism in wider Europe, another Joan, the painter Miro, looked to the skies for hope. His collection of paintings called Constellations appear as mitochondria of our need for connections amidst the chaos of our own making. The decades to follow under Franco's restrictions of self-expression may have driven Catalan poets and artists indoors, and Barcelona is certainly blessed with indoor places to complement its gorgeous parks and waterfront and city squares. Antoni Gaudí is arguably the world's most effective architect in the meld of internal and external aesthetics. Think of the rooftop of Casa Mia, the cave paths of Park Güell, and the posthumous imagination of La Sagrada Familia. Perhaps that basilica remains unfinished on purpose, an exercise for us to imagine and co-create. Barcelona probably didn't need the 1992 Olympics to pull the world's eyes to this marvelous venue, but the planning, led by Maragall's grandson, then the city's mayor, gave incentive to put its best face forward, inspiring Freddie Mercury's anthem, "The moment you stepped into the room, you took my breath away, Barcelona." We should all see Barcelona from up close, from the barrio's perspective, and the serendipity that comes so naturally with its residents and tourists. We should hike to Montserrat and dance to cues of the magic fountain. We should help curate the beauty that can never be taken for granted. Barcelona is abundant in such beauty, but what about its soul?
Right, and that's what we're trying to do today with our podcast. We're trying to find the soul and the fascination of Barcelona. And we will focus on 3 pillars, as I mentioned before: the witty part, the artistic life and the countless opportunities, the fun, the best things we would miss or do in Barcelona, and the socially engaged dialogues, specifically with topics on discrimination, minority groups, ethnic groups, Blacks, liberties, restraints, biases, sexualization, and sexism from the perspective of our guests. So every time I open up the discussion with some demographics so that we kind of know what's going on in Barcelona. And this time it was funny that when I typed on Google statistics, stats, Barcelona stats, everything comes up with football and the FC Barcelona and all of that. So it was pretty hard to go to the right links about the demographics of Barcelona, because football and the biggest football stadium in Europe is very much predominant on Google and most likely in many people's lives. So the population is 1.6 million inhabitants. I'm just going to go with round numbers. I'm not going to give the exact numbers. So the non-nationals represent 17%, more or less. The foreign-born nationals make up 20% of the city's inhabitants. So that's not too much from my perspective. The largest minority group people are from Italy, which is 14%. That's surprising, because between the Italians and the Spanish, I don't know if there's some rivalry going on. I have no idea, but there is a lot of Italians in Barcelona. And we have the predominant religions: Christians, 68%, the Muslims, almost 10%, Buddhists, 8%, Jehovah's Witnesses, 5%, and others, 8%. The languages spoken are Spanish and Catalan. And some jewels of Barcelona are the biggest football stadium in Europe, obviously, Gaudi, which is, there is no other comment that we can add to that. Mercado de la Boqueria, the Gothic district, the Latino music, flamenco, which is not a Catalan tradition, but Barcelona has an active Andalusian population as well, and dancers with a lot of verve and color. So that's just a little bit of introduction about Barcelona and the highlights of Barcelona as we can find them superficially online Googling it. But right now we want to explore a little bit the authenticity through our guest and to find the real soul of Barcelona. And we had our first guest, Hector. We interviewed him yesterday. And the question that I asked him was, what are the social problematics of Barcelona? Now, today we are going to emphasize a little bit about the sexualization and sexism and the discriminations and the problems between foreigners and the locals, if there are any. But from your point of view, just a very quick question to everyone. What do you think are the social problematics currently in Barcelona? And are they represented through the pieces, poets or artists at your events?
Well, I think we can't ignore the sort of the crime in Barcelona when you say the sort of social issues. It would be silly not to mention that, because in the sort of city centre, I live in El Born, and it is true, it's you do have to be really, really careful. I've been robbed 3 times since living there. So there is like a real dichotomy between this like amazing, beautiful, stunning place, and then there is that sort of darker side to it as well, that you can't ignore, if that makes sense. So there's such a big clash of like emotions in Barcelona, because you're so excited to be there every day. I feel so blessed to live there. But at the same time, there is this sort of running element of like fear in the underbelly, if that makes sense. Yeah. And in terms of, does it come across in the sort of artistic sense in my nights? Like, yes, certainly. What's really nice is that in the international community, I think we're quite free and open to talk about how we feel living in Barcelona. Yeah, definitely, it's something that it is definitely prominent.
Kriste, would you like to add something?
I mean, adding to the same point, I mean, I was robbed the first week when I arrived.
Yeah.
But it was very organized.
Welcome to Barcelona. You have to have this.
That was like, wow, okay. And I had been here before, but I was going to actually move here. But yeah, it is an issue, definitely. But I think also the longer you live here, you are aware. I mean, the way you carry your things, you don't put them at the back pocket and so on. But talking from the dance community side, I think what I really like about the dance community, especially with social, is that you kind of stick together, because although the community is huge here, but still people kind of, I feel a bit more secure. For example, if you have a huge party in a club, you're fine leaving your stuff like on the bench there, because you know the people who are there, they don't steal, but it is a possibility. So I think in that way, it's kind of or if you go dancing outside at the park, like Ciutadella, I live next to Ciutadella, it's still, everyone keeps an eye on, but definitely, yeah, you have to do that. This is the dark side of Barcelona, I agree.
I think for me, one of the things that I noticed almost immediately when I moved here was the lack of representation in the cultural spaces. There's a lot when it comes to music, nights out, clubs, the kind of cultural events in terms of artistic spaces, it's very, very, very white dominated, I find. And a lot of my friends here, I think probably the majority of my friends here are not white, and it's a conversation that comes up again and again and again. And that's definitely something that in my space I'm very proud of, that, it's and it's commented on by people who kind of come to events around the city, have said to me afterwards how wonderful it was to have such a diverse group of people in terms of gender identity, queerness, from nationality, race, everything. I think that's one of them. Coming from London, where I lived for about 7 years, coming here, it was something that was very, very in my face, as a noticeable thing. So I think that's definitely something that as a city we can all do more to push representation into the cultural spaces beyond what it is now.
Just one addition to it, Hector mentioned that from his perspective, the artistic community was kind of privileged. And the people who are coming to artistic events are privileged people who don't have too many struggles or too many issues. they have a job, they may be studying, they're having a PhD or whatever. So I don't know if that relates to the problem that you're saying, but I kind of feel that it could be one of the causes.
I think maybe definitely. For me, my event is free and will always be free. I think that's another thing that the city offers. Like, you know, I've been able to put on my night with no cost. So it's a non-for-profit. Like I don't make anything out of it, and everyone is able to just come for free. And I'm trying to build my event to be something, to be able to be something bigger that will again remain free for people who come to perform and people who want to come and watch. Because I think it is definitely a big barrier to some people. I know I've been in positions before when I've not been able to go to certain events, or I've not been able to go to somewhere where I might be able to perform because I just couldn't afford it and didn't have the money. So I think that's definitely an aspect. Yeah.
Makis.
Yeah, I started doing free events as well, but then there is some point that this is not possible. So because after the pandemic, most of the bars or venues, they started asking for money. So yeah, when the situation changes, yeah, it's not always easy to make it for free. But what you can do is like to charge €5, for example, with a drink included. So it's like the same. So the bar makes their money, you don't make any money, but at least you can continue with the event. What I want to say is that we have this possibility for diverse artists and audience because we run events in English. Which is separates us from the Spanish public and the people from here. I say this because I mean, in my events, maybe 2 or 3 people from here have participated and they speak English, but mostly we have people that they come from abroad. And it's very interesting because you see every day almost you have messages. You receive messages that, I just came to live in Barcelona. I'm looking for poets. I'm looking for poetry events. I found you on Meetup or wherever, and let me know if there are other events. So we receive messages. People is looking for us. But people who live here, they have like their separate events. So I think it's a bit divided. And not only from their part that they are not coming to our events, only if we invite them to perform, but from our side as well. We don't really go to, I mean, I started poetry with the Spanish scene. So yeah, I know like almost everybody. But then I started the English events and this was like cut off. So we are not really go as well, but there are many stuff happening in Spanish. But many people, they come here, they don't speak the language. So it's normal that you cannot really go to these events. And it's a shame because in Barcelona, there is a movement called Aturem Rumors, which means stop rumors. And they organize events. I worked with them like 2 times with poetry, but they organize events to give visibility to all the minorities, all the colored people who come from abroad. There is another movement called Black Barcelona, and they do every year many events, super interesting poetry events that they invite people from around the world, but people, Black people who live here as well. So there is a huge movement.
Just to add as well, one thing that is huge for in my own personal life here in the last sort of maybe 12 months or so, and a lot of the people that I know, is like Barcelona has always been a very, like, to me, like my awareness of Barcelona has always been a very open and LGBT welcoming and friendly city. And in the last sort of year or so, there have been so many attacks in the city, homophobic attacks, people put in hospital, it's a national issue and it's a global issue, it's a European issue, it's something that's definitely on the rise. There've been so many protests this year. Someone in the northwest of Spain was killed in the summer. And I think that for me, being able to create safe spaces where people are able to feel safe and are able to find that sense of community at a time that things are becoming relatively more dangerous. Like for the first time in my entire life, really, after living all around the world, I found myself in the last 12 months walking home a bit a bit nervous and a bit not feeling 100% safe. So I think what we're able to do with spaces like this is give people a space where they can come and feel completely safe to be able to get on stage and share something, or just sit and enjoy and experience someone else's performance. And that's definitely something that's come out of my night. People saying that they may have had things in their head, or they may have written things down and never shared them because they come from places where they grew up was so incredibly homophobic, and they have found a space to be able to share very intimate writing and thoughts in a space that they had not found before. So I think that's another thing just to add to the conversation here, where we as sort of space creators, we have a responsibility, I think, to make sure that they're the safest spaces that they can be for anyone who wants to share.
Kelly, you've called your open mic events Anything Else, and I really love the title. We imagine that the people have a chance to add to the slate even as first timers. How did you come up with Anything Else? Was there a journey to that name?
Yeah, well, basically, it's because it's at the Comedy Clubhouse. So they run comedy nights every night there. And when I was asking whether they wanted to do it, I was hoping they were going to do another type of, poetry or storytelling night, because after the pandemic, all those sort of nights seemed to just disappear. And then he asked me if I would run a night. So I was like, okay. So the idea of Anything Else was that it would be anything other than stand-up comedy. So whatever you want, basically, that was the idea behind it. And yeah, just what you said there, that's the whole point, is that it can be anything from professional musicians to first timers. And I always try and get at least one person on stage each of the events that hasn't performed before, or is a little bit nervous and thinking about performing. I'm sort of trying to coax them into just having a go, and even just saying a few words, or reading one short poem out or something like that. That's the sort of energy of the night that I'm trying to create. So that's where the name came from.
Great. It so happens I'm an international school teacher like you, and I wonder if your classroom teacher experience kind of integrates activities that are more local, more international. Do you have a sense with your students that you are in Barcelona doing Barcelona things, or you're an international school teacher doing international things? Can you address that a bit?
Good question. I try to keep it quite on the down low that I do this kind of thing with my students. I don't know. I try to keep it a little bit separate. I think it makes me a little bit nervous if they found out some of the things that we talk about in our events. Some of the subjects can be a bit taboo, and it makes me nervous the thought of them knowing too much about me running these kinds of nights, because they can be a bit nuts.
I wonder if it was more to the spirit of, is there a transfer of skills? Do you feel that?
Yeah.
I mean, on stages that are adult-based, that's one thing. But then as students are, in their formative years, do you kind of bring that skill set to them? Anything else from their side type of thing?
From their side, yeah. I mean, I certainly try to. As a teacher, you'll know, it's a really important thing to try and nurture talent. And that's certainly something that I try to do with my students. But with adults and with the performance side of things, with the night, it's just completely and utterly different. With my students, they're generally, they can be quite nervous about performing and quite nervous about sharing writing. So it's really nice to be in an environment where I'm able to coax this in a more professional sense, if that makes sense, and try and it's just really lovely to when you do finally get these breakthroughs where people are finally able to share something that they've really wanted to share.
Yeah, actually that segues me to, I was going to ask Luke a question about safe space, and you already really addressed it very, very eloquently. How did that idea of safe space come to you even in your younger years? Did you kind of latch onto that idea because you heard somebody talking about it, or you felt a need for it? How does that safe space idea evolve for you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of say this at the beginning of all of my nights. The word safe space is used quite a lot. Those two words are kind of put on a lot of things, and they're said and never really necessarily defined. And I think for me, the idea of safe space, I feel I've actually come to a realization the older I've got, actually just how privileged I've been in my life to have always felt like I have a safe space. I've had very supportive parents, family, friends, the friends that I've found and that I've made. I've always been able to have a space where I can just go and cry at any point in time. You know, I've always had some that safety net. And as I've got older, I've started to realize just how important and valuable that is, and how that's not a given. That's an incredible privilege. So for me, I kind of define what that means in the beginning of every one of my nights, and to me, like, a safe space in this context, because it's different, right? A safe space is different in whatever context it's being provided. So in the context of my nights, it's about a non-judgmental audience. It's about a supportive space. It's about not a competition or about someone doing the best performance or who's better than who. It's just about giving them all of your love and support. And I kind of tell my audiences that their role in the night is kind of the most important. It's more important than any of the performers, and their work there is to make sure that they're giving the performers that safety to get up and share something that might be super vulnerable in its content, or it might just be a super vulnerable position that they've never performed before and they want to try something out. Or with the pandemic, the reason that I created the space, same as Kelly, really was that, we've been starved of an opportunity to perform. Anyone who has a discipline that relies on an audience has been, starved of that opportunity. So some people might have not performed for years. It might be 2-3 years since someone got up on stage. So I think, like, safe space it's always been the core of what I wanted to create in the night. And yeah, it's something that I've kind of not necessarily been super aware of from a young age, but have grown to really understand the value of.
Yeah, and a quick follow-up. I love the titles that you give these production events, and yours is called Escúchame, Hear This. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wondered about that. There's a dichotomy in hear and listen, and to be seen and to see others. And I wondered about that, how you kind of came up with that title and the involvement the audience has in Escúchame, Hear This.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I guess it kind of follows on, that it's really putting at the heart not the performer, but the act of sharing and the act of listening, and the fact that we want to have the opportunity to be heard, but also as audiences, people are desperate to hear as well, and are desperate to listen, and desperate to be able to experience someone else's experiences, right? So to be able to listen and put yourself into someone else's shoes again. In terms of the act coming up of the name, it was actually, it's quite embarrassing, really. I found the venue first. I kind of knew the night, it was kind of formulated in my head, and then I found this venue, and I went there and I asked and said to kind of put something on here. And then I sat in that bar with my friends, and I was like, so what the hell do we call this thing? And then my friend went, okay, right, let's think about it. So where is it? And I was like, here. And he's like, and what is it? I was like, this. And he's like, and I was like, oh, hang on, hear this, but not here. And then that's how it came to be with that name. But I mean, it's serendipity, I guess, because it fits.
Great, good double entendre. And I'll hand it back over to Soar.
If you guys want to have a feedback on what has been said so far, maybe I would have a very quick question. How is the post-Corona events going on? How has Corona impacted the stage and the artistic community, more or less?
Well, speaking for me, like I set my event up this year, so it's always been post-Corona, and I was so surprised. I honestly expected it to be a bunch of my friends kind of getting up and doing some things together, and I put it up, and then because of the restrictions, I had to have a 35-person capacity, and it wasn't ticketed. And I thought, and I just kind of started discounting in my head how many people had said they were going to come, and then I was like, okay, we're over 35 already just for this kind of like first event. So I ended up ticketing it, making it 2 events in each night, so I could have 70, and it sold out. It was full. And then as soon as the restrictions went and they doubled, so we had 140 capacity, again full. And since then it's been full every night, and I haven't really advertised it, I haven't promoted it. It's just been word of mouth from people who've come, and there's always new people there. So I think the city is very, very hungry for
yeah, I just want to say from the dance side, that's the thing. City is really hungry, and people, I think what we went through, people need that. They need the connection. And like with dance community, it's kind of crazy. It's more about the restrictions. Like everyone, all the organizers are trying to find a way how to organize, because dance, it's contact. So it's kind of harder to have regulations, but they either you dance outside or you find a way. Even now we have restrictions, but they are practicas happening, or there's always a way. But yes, it is really hungry for that, and I can see it more here than in other countries. Actually, I think people don't have the fear like I see in other places, because I'm from Estonia. People are more they're staying away. Here they're like all in. Like, of course you see 2 ways, people going 2 sides, but yeah, definitely.
The comedy events have a huge impact now on the Barcelona scene. That's my understanding. What do you think about that, Hector?
Yeah, no, I think it's always been bigger and a more mature scene, the comedy scene, than the spoken word scene. I think an impact was felt, I think, with the pandemic and all. On one side, you could see people were writing more. There was like a more creative, it was a time of introspection, of creation and everything. But event-wise, it wasn't such a established or strong scene like maybe Berlin or maybe other bigger cities with spoken word, like capitals of the world, I'd say. I think Barcelona has less people, and maybe compared to Berlin or other capitals of Europe, the job situation isn't the same. So it's a very transitory city. I don't think it's as easy to stay in Barcelona for a long time as it is in Berlin, for example, with the job offers, with all that stuff. So I think that impacts both scenes in a way, both the comedy and the poetry. And the poetry being a smaller scene, suddenly great performers we had, they just started moving away because of the pandemic or jobs or other opportunities. So they went back home or to bigger cities. And it's like an always evolving in terms of the performers. So yeah, right now I feel the poetry is like in a cocoon. Hopefully it becomes a butterfly, if I can use an analogy, but yeah, that's how I see it. But yeah, in terms of defining myself, I would say both. I really like both, and it all comes down to storytelling.
Do you feel that the publics and also the performers themselves would prefer comedy because it's just a trend, because they don't want to put too much effort and work anymore into deeper texts, or has nothing to do with one another?
No, I would disagree a bit, I have to say, Soar. I don't think comedy is necessarily more shallow than poetry. I think it's all about authenticity. In my opinion, you can talk about a very delicate issue or topic in comedy, but it comes down to how authentic it is to you. Same with poetry. Like, to put an example, I can't make a poem about sexual abuse, for example. That's a deep topic. I can't speak about that. Comedy is the same. I can't make jokes about that. It's completely inappropriate, in a way. But I can talk about my upbringing. I can talk about things that have happened to me. I can talk about racism I felt. I can do it in a poem, in a deep way. I can talk about it through jokes as a way of lightening a heavy topic. And I think in the end is telling that story. It's that authenticity. And you can have the spoken word approach where you tackle through it and yeah, okay, let's feel this more deeply. But maybe if people have felt so much in these 2 years, they want a bit of exhaustion, they want a bit of relief too. So if we can talk about that, but hey, either we cry or we laugh. I think it comes down to that for the last couple of years. I think people are preferring laughter in a way. Like I want to distract myself. I want to relax. I don't want to think about COVID, isolation, financial stress for a while. So entertainment wise, I think that's the appeal that comedy has. I guess in general, people are more inclined into laughing than into feeling the heaviness.
Depressed and the heaviness of life.
But as a showrunner, I wouldn't be sure of mixing the two because the energy shift is too different.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Both as a poet and as a comedian, you can't have a crowd that is riled up, laughing, uproaring, and then, hey, here's a poem about something that happened, like let's bring you down. Yeah, we had to adapt. Like they weren't selling alcohol in the venues. We had a curfew, and people were hungry for entertainment, for hearing those stories, for listening to the artists. So the response from the public was amazing. I'm always grateful. Every single event we've had of this kind, the people are amazing. They're with the acts, and we have one half which is spoken word artists and one half which is the hip hop artists, and it blends perfectly. I think both add up the necessary ingredients for like a really wholesome, really cool atmosphere.
Nice.
Yeah, we do it every month. Yeah.
You talked about authenticity and individuality in the expression of the arts. Now you also create events for communities, for collectives. And my next question is, what are the main current social issues that Barcelona is dealing with through the artistic displays that you've experienced so far?
Generally speaking, I think we're privileged to be in Europe, and I'm thankful for that as well in those terms. In terms of the issues, I'd say performance-wise or as a showrunner, I think people speak about their own story. I wouldn't say there's a topic pertaining to Barcelona in the immigrant community that comes to these events. We are the target of most of the events are immigrants that are actually way more privileged. So I think that's an area of opportunity to tackle these things. But in the English speaking scene, there's very little problems pertaining something deeper like immigration problems, undocumented people. Everyone that speaks English and comes to these events, they're doing a master's or they have a job or they're just taking a sabbatical. So yeah, all I can say is they can speak about their own experiences. It's not something about the city per se. But yeah, in general, I think the community in Barcelona is so varied in terms of nationalities and people from very different backgrounds in one city. You see more their points of view, their stories, their whole spectrum of emotions from their different nationalities and their own stories. But as a city per se, the English-speaking performances are, I would say, privileged. Yeah, in that sense. It's people that could go to Barcelona to find a way of living or found a way of living, and it's not immigrant that arrived without a single thing. So
now I have a counter question to this privilege, and then I'll have Daniel think of a follow-up question because maybe he also has one. My counter question to this is, because you're saying, okay, the English-speaking community is privileged and they don't have issues with visas and papers and so on and so forth. Has the language been a barrier in terms of English is not really an easily accessed language in countries like Spain and Italy. People would not willingly or happily learn English unless they have to. And many times, even now, searching, for example, for dancers, I had the language barrier because there are so many dancers that I can find for a podcast, but they don't speak English. They speak Spanish. So do you believe that there's a language barrier in terms of, okay, I would love to have more let's say artists on my events, but they don't speak English, they speak Spanish? Or is your event bilingual, or how's the language barrier working?
Yeah. I targeted as an English speaking event because English is a universal language, but I never put a restraint on language. I've had Turkish guitarists sing, I've had Italian rappers, I've had French rappers, I've had people rapping in Spanish or performing in Spanish, in Catalan. I put no barriers. I say it's multilingual. And when it comes to these sort of performances, I think the energy speaks a lot. Of course, you miss the message in this thing, but you like authenticity and energy have no language. I don't see a barrier there. So maybe you don't understand a single thing, but you can feel that person performing. It's like hearing an opera. I don't know Italian, but you hear an opera, you're like, wow, I don't know what I'm feeling, but this is amazing, you know? It has never been a barrier, I think, for the events. I open it to any language, but I can tell you that the scenes in Spanish or Catalan in Barcelona, you can find bigger scenes in terms of poetry, at least. Yeah, there's way more poets in Spanish and Catalan than in the English scene, which is more transitory. I reach out to people who I feel have like something really nice to say. It doesn't matter if they've done it once or twice or a million times. I just put the lineup up and I let the energy flow, and it always turns out somehow beautiful own thing. You never know what to expect, and it's beautiful. However, when it comes to this roller coaster of emotions, yeah, I think it's part of the playfulness, and the reasons I love is it's very hard to anticipate any reaction. All you can do is share your own thing, and if people take it this way, that way, the other way, that's it. The most important thing is doing things with love, knowing you're doing it out of love, not out of I read something about a philosopher I like a lot. Philosophy, spirituality is you have to be indifferent to the applause and you have to be indifferent to the insult in the same way, because you're sharing yourself without, it's like unconditional love. But yeah, that's my opinion on the topic.
Please tell us the things to miss, the things not to miss in Barcelona, and what is the coolest things to do, not from a stereotype, touristic point of view, but from a cultural or artistic point of view.
Definitely the museums. I think with the restrictions, it's very hard to predict what's going to open and close with Omicron. But I would suggest following, if you like comedy, it's English Comedy in Barcelona, in Instagram, on Facebook. The spoken word and poetry events we're putting up is Escúchame with Luke. You'll know more about Saturday. We have ours. It's called Bard House BCN. If you want to see the Enter the Coronavirus, Bard House BCN. There's a lot of comedy shows as well. I'm also organizing one called Uranus Comedy BCN. It's in a bar called Space Cowboy. So I think it's super important to check out these open mics, at least the ones I mentioned. And also Makis he holds a poetry slam. It's a monthly one. I would really check those out, and I would think specifically like the museums. There's a couple new museums. I don't know the name, but really cool expositions. I think people oversee that. Like there's very, very nice expositions. There's so much things on Meetup. And
what's your favorite place to go in Barcelona? Like one place, one spot.
There's so many, but as I said, with the restrictions, it's hard to tell. Go check Montjuic, go check the touristic places. I would say go to the events or check the touristic areas. Walk around the city. Honestly, just walk around it and you'll find secret gems here and there.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a next question to Makis. Makis, you are a creator of multidisciplinary events and festivals in important corners around Europe, not only in Barcelona. And my question is, what makes an event in Barcelona different than any event in Brussels or Berlin, for example? And is the bar of organizing and of responsibility higher or more chill? Does it help, for example, that the people are open and authentic as compared to maybe other countries like Berlin, where Germans are a bit different. So let us know what makes an event special in Barcelona special as compared to everywhere else where you have been.
That I live here. Everything is easier.
It's easier.
Of course, it's more relaxing because you are here. I mean, you know what can go bad or what can go good, you know. When you organize events in Greece, for example, the measures, you know, the safety measures changing all the time. So you organize the event and then 1 week before you have to cancel it because you don't really know what is happening there. Or speaking with people like from other, if they are not here, it's more complicated. Here, I mean, you go to the place, you meet the people, and you meet them even before, so you know what you deal with, you know. If you don't really know the people and you only speak with them by messages, emails and stuff, and you organize the thing, it's like you can have like arguments because of a message that somebody took it badly or whatever. So you have to really be careful how you write and what and everything. If you are here, you can speak with the people, you can see the people. It's more easy to organize it. You can go to the place, to the venue and see it before you book it. Because it's happened to me. I booked the venues without only by pictures sometimes. When you go there, it's something different. So here you can visit the places. You can go with friends and have another opinion maybe. And it's more relaxing. Yeah, it's more relaxing in Barcelona. And people are more open, is what you say. People are more open. Even if you go maybe to a small bar like Limerick or whatever, people will be like happy to have an event wherever and be able to go and see stuff. In Brussels, for example, they want to go to a huge theater. In Greece, they want like the best, the most modern venue because they, okay, this event is happening there, so I'll go. If this event is happening to another area that I don't really like it, or a venue that it's not that famous, you cannot have an event there because nobody will come. In Barcelona, I think people are more open to go anywhere to have fun.
So the location is important. I had in my mind more about the people. If people are, for example, from the artistic side.
But it's what I said before. The people here, we run events in English, so people are from everywhere. Okay. And because they live in another country, so they are from abroad, they're not from here, they can accept things easier because they can think, okay, that's how it's happening here. So I will accept it. But if you organize events with people, locals, they are more peculiar, you know. But people coming from abroad, I think they accept es lo que hay, like we say here. That's what it is. So we're gonna go there and have fun. They are more, they are not that stressed with this stuff. They just want to find places and hear stuff and perform and have fun and make friends, because for them it's like creating a group. All people coming to Barcelona, they are all looking for a group to be part of. So yeah, people are happier, I think, here.
Yeah, most of our podcasts were actually from the perspective of international artists and international communities, but still, I still believe there are differences. The international community in Prague is different than the international community in Berlin. And I do believe there is this openness and this easiness to take part in events and not to be judged or not to be checked as compared to other places. And that relates me now to the next question and to the title actually of our podcast, which is called, has something to do with Bralettes. Kriste, like I said, you are an important person to me in this podcast, and thank you for being part of it, because I have to tell you guys, it's super difficult to bring dancers to the poets. It's something that hardly ever happens, especially in Berlin. I'm a creator of events, and I always have a diversity of artistic displays, but never dancers. The dancers are always like, if you don't have music, if you don't have some bachata and salsa, they will not come. They don't want to waste their time on poetry. So it's very difficult for me to bring dancers to my events And I love this. I have discovered salsa a couple of years ago. And ever since then, I try to combine and to bring this joy of dance and of music into the events in Berlin. My question, however, is, I wanted to say a short story. So I came to Barcelona 3 years ago to some events, and what amazed me the most in Barcelona was that most of the women were wearing bralettes. And for me, that was a highlight. That was the best thing ever, because you cannot wear something like that in Berlin. Actually, what I did, that's why I'm telling you these guys. I went to this place and I was amazed. I said, wow, this is a lot. I mean, not just 1, 2 girls, everybody, all the girls. Everybody had this, for the listeners, a bralette is some sort of a sports bra, but in a nicer way. It looks nice. So, with laces maybe or whatever. And I came back to Berlin to our poetic event, to our spoken word event. And I did wear a bralette. And I said, okay, let me test the public here. Let's see what the public says. And I swear to you guys, so I performed. I had this bralette on me. And I performed. And at the end of the event, I asked my best friend, who was actually also in Barcelona, and he knew about this, and said, what do you think about my piece? I said, forget about the piece. Everybody was watching the bralette. And I said, if you want to perform in Berlin, don't wear bralettes, because it was a no-go. So it was a huge shock for everybody. So we do have international communities everywhere, but somehow it's different, because of course a city has its own influences on the public, and it's certain things you cannot really implement in other countries. That's why I put bralette in the title, so you guys understand. I was trying to appropriate a piece of garment from your culture, and it did not work. Like, I confused everybody. Like, what is Soar trying to do here? So, coming to a more serious question, Kriste. The salsa dancing scene is undoubtedly stronger and better in Barcelona than in Berlin and in other places. What is the impact of the dancing scene on Barcelona in general? And being a dancer of salsa and bachata and kizomba, how strong are the issues of sexualization and sexism impregnated in the Barcelona scene from your perspective?
First of all, talking about the different styles, I would say bachata has taken over everything. Like, it's actually crazy. Kizomba is the smallest, and salsa, of course, like, Barcelona has a lot of Latinos, so you have the huge culture from that, but also bachata is from Dominican Republic. And now I think because the creators of, there's new styles now, the creators of Bachata Central are from Spain. So for some reason now last years, and I would say it's like has grown crazy amounts, and also in rest of the Europe. So, and I think it started from Spain. So anyone who comes to Spain, they know it's like bachata everywhere. And in a way, it has impacted the Latin and the salsa community. It's actually much smaller, and people feel that. But talking about how the culture affects the rest of the city itself, so there's 2 ways. Like, you have the local parties or live music that you can go and just walk in. They can be free or so on. And then you have the private parties that are for the dancers. And I think, but being a foreigner, when I came to the city like 4 years ago, it was actually, I find it, we were talking about, either it's an English-speaking community or only Spanish-speaking community. I find here, when you're coming as a foreigner and you don't speak Spanish and you're blonde and from Eastern Europe, it's much harder. Like, people judge you where you're from, actually. So if you're not a Latina with curly hair, they judge you from your appearance. It doesn't matter if you can dance, and you probably can dance better than the others as a teacher or dancer, but you are being judged. And it's very hard. It's much harder to get into the community and also find your way as a teacher. So that's kind of the other way that we were talking. But talking about gender issues and so on, I see in Barcelona, people are more free and more accepted. For example, if you go to a party, a guy can dance with a guy, a girl with a girl, you have followers and leaders. So it's kind of breaking the barrier that you only have a man and a woman and the man is the leader and the woman is the follower. And I really like that. And I see, for example, other countries, even Berlin or I don't know, London, Estonia, it's kind of it's happening, but people look at it weird. Like, it's kind of like, oh, okay, a guy is dancing with a guy. Like, that's kind of a weird. And I've seen what they started here actually as well. They even did like a first same gender dance parties. So to make it more open and make people like people would accept it. So that's kind of cool. So I like it. So I think that's kind of my answer.
What about the sexualization? Did you ever have problems or wearing bralettes?
Yeah, so this is another thing. I see Barcelona being very open. I think, like, you know, you can go to the beach and be naked. I mean, no one cares. If it happens anywhere else, people look at you weird, and people coming from other countries, they're like, oh my God, like they're, you know, you're topless or something. No one cares, honestly. I feel that's liberating. But with the dance community, yes, I think you can really wear whatever you want. Talking about bralettes, it's actually interesting, like you said. So actually, if you go to a festival, as I said, so you have dance festivals that are kizomba, salsa, big festivals. You have people coming all around the world. I've never seen, like, everyone's wearing bralettes. Like, no one cares what you're wearing. The less you wear, the better. And it's funny to think, because like I see people at the festival, they feel really free. They can wear whatever they want, but they would never go like that to a normal party in their own city. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of like a safe space, and people are more open to wear what they want and express what they want. So yeah, so it's not only in Barcelona. I think it's the whole dance community that has created that.
Wonderful. Anyone, if you want to jump in?
I think Barcelona is more open on that. Obviously, if you have a poem and the subject is LGBTQI+, people here are more open. It's very interesting to perform the same poem in different countries. So then you can realize that Barcelona is more open. I have performed a poem under this subject in like 4 countries. Each country was like different. You can see the public like completely different. And Barcelona, I think, is one of the most open ones. Yeah.
But that's also the beauty of it. I mean, it's a very interesting and nice experiment to do when you take a piece, or in my case, it was a piece of garment, and I experimented with the same piece. I presented the same piece with the same garment in 2 different countries, and it was completely different reactions. And I think it's just interesting to see how people react to the same thing. You grow a little bit more, and you realize and you appreciate different cultures in their respective ways. Started from Berlin, but in Barcelona, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to go. But I know every time there is a couple coming from Barcelona or anywhere in Spain coming to Berlin, it's the shit. I'm sorry for my language. Like, everybody here goes crazy. Oh, we have to go because there are instructors from Barcelona, from Spain. So they're really, really highly respected. Bachata or kizomba or salsa, you're good to go.
Yeah, I think the level, like compared to the level generally, like for me, it's amazing being a social dancer, not as a teacher. You can go to a regular party and the level is high. It's amazing. Like I don't need to, it's the same level as another festival. So definitely, I think, and because Spain has a huge influence on the Latin community, and I think more and more, because like more and more teachers are moving, like you have Madrid and Barcelona, they are very good teachers, and like this is how the community has been. So of course, yeah.
All right, great.
Well, so just to pick up what you were saying earlier, so about the integration, like I think that's something that in Barcelona it's much more common as well. Like I've had a number of dance pieces at my event, you know, and a lot of the audiences are super multidisciplinary, and people are much more. I think the thing in Barcelona particularly is like it's a lot more of a spontaneous culture. So people don't necessarily make their big plans and they go to this thing and you know, like Makis was saying, like I'll go to this venue and I'll go to that place. People generally will just walk out, meet some friends and go and find something to do.
Yeah.
And I think that gives much like a really nice kind of coming together of different people and from different places, and So I think that is definitely some seasoning that Barcelona has.
I would just add to that, that's really good side, but also it's really hard when you try to organize, like when you have classes, regular classes, because people are just like, this week I'm going to go, next week not. Like any other countries, it's like, I have to train for 6 months before I start doing anything. So it's a good and a bad side thinking.
Yeah,
depends where you're looking at.
And if it rains, no one's coming.
Yeah, if it rains.
You guys are scared. You guys are scared if it rains.
There's laid back, and then there's Barcelona. It's like it's a different level.
It's a double-edged sword completely. And actually, I was thinking about this when you were speaking, Makis, as well, because you kind of like Barcelona. I think a lot of the people, especially in the kind of international community here, a lot of people come here for a certain reason, and it's to get this kind of slower, more gentle pace of life. And that is great, but it can be super frustrating because it can make things much harder to get done. I think it leaves open a space that if you want to do something, you can, and people are really up for it. And like people were saying earlier, like there's definitely like hunger for people to go and see things and experience new things and go into any random bar, and all the bars and spaces are really open to having different things on. But if it's the double-edged sword of having a very laid back, gentle kind of life here to then actually like getting stuff done, and kind of elevating the performance beyond the kind of like casual kind of wander in and do something and go home. It's it comes with its pros and cons.
I wanted to add something here. It's important, I think. In Barcelona, there is a collaborative spirit as well between people who are organizing events and artists as well. For example, I go to an event and I see a dancer, and the first thing comes to my mind is like, okay, let's do something together. I use my poetry, you dance or you sing. So for me, from my experience, there is a super collaborative spirit. So we go to events to find other artists and collaborate, which is amazing. In Greece, this is like, no way. And between the organizers as well. I mean, I started an event, then Kelly started before we had other people, and then we were like, okay, what can we do all together? So the winner of the Poetry Slam has a spot to this event next month, So we try to collaborate and help each other.
Yeah, definitely. We're always sort of edged each other on, and sort of if we have a good performer at one of our nights, we'll be like, oh, you should go to this one. And, we kind of recommend each other and try to make it work in that way.
It's amazing.
And Hector is really good at that. Hector has taken a number of people because he actually works in Imperfecto, which is a brilliant venue here, which is where I have my night. He works there, and he's cherry picked some of the stand-ups who've come to my night. Who, again, one of them is amazing. He had never done stand-up before, got up and just tried it, and is now going through all the different nights performing around the city. And in terms of collaboration, I mean, one of the dance performances that I had at my night was there was a live tattoo being done while someone was dancing. Wow. And it was actually me getting the tattoo. I got a tattoo done. Someone came to my event, a tattoo artist who's amazing, and was like, I really want to do something. I want to perform as a tattoo artist. And I was like, okay, well, how will that work? Like, definitely, let's do it. Let me speak to the guy who runs the bar, ask him if that's okay. And then he was like, yeah, but I don't want to just be me tattooing. So he's like, I want something else to be happening. So we kind of another good friend of mine who comes to all of my events is a dancer, was like, well, I'll do a dance. We just did a rehearsal, and then I was blindfold, the dancer was blindfold, and I had no idea what tattoo I was getting. And I don't think that would necessarily ever happen anywhere else other than in Barcelona.
I heard about that. Everybody speaks about that.
Oh, really?
Okay, so it's the story like my bralette in Berlin. See, and obviously your story is much more edgy than mine. Being like having this courage to display something in a place where people would not expect, and your story is just wow. I would not have the courage for sure to do something like that live. But I would like us to go to the fun part of our podcast, which means what are the coolest places or things to do in Barcelona, and what is the soul of Barcelona to you personally? And we can go around. We start with the girls, and that's fine.
I was just going to say, it's so funny when you say, like, where would you go and what would you do? And honestly, the amount of nights and, you know, times I've just walked around the city and been in bars and places that I haven't gone back to and I couldn't recall the name of, and I've just had the best time there, because it's that kind of place where you can just wander around and get lost. It's just that's for me, that's what it's all about, is that it's not necessarily you have to go to this venue, you have to go to this venue. You can have the most brilliant time just wandering around and just sort of following your nose and your ears.
What is the soul of Barcelona to you?
To me, I think it's the soul of Barcelona to me is the way that it can be so vibrant and fast, but yet really, really slow at the same time. I've never been anywhere that encompasses that feeling of how vibrant and quick and colourful somewhere can be, but yet so relaxed and slow and chilled out. It's a really weird feeling, a really amazing one as well.
Kriste, tell us about your opinion.
Well, I think also like talking about favorite places, it's the same thing. I've been to so many places and I can't remember the names. I mean, I've been to open mic nights, the same thing. Either someone has invited or just walked in. But of course, talking about the dance world, like the social dance world, there are certain venues. And yes, as I said before, like it's different with the venues that you can walk in, like Bon Bon or from the street, that they have music and you have random people. And then you have the dance events where dancers go and you have special events. And now it's kind of changed a lot with the pandemic, a lot. So there's new venues or they have to change venues because of the restrictions. But I don't know, talking about the names, if anyone knows
Just tell us, for example, in Berlin, there's two people, all the dancers know. For example, in Berlin is Soda and Havana. So people who are dancers would enjoy dancing,
exactly,
will definitely not miss Soda Club and Havana. So tell me two names of two places where people should go if they love dancing, especially authentic dancing.
So definitely I would say then Esencia and Antilla. So there are two like Russian clubs that's mostly bachata, but also salsa. For kizomba community and zouk community, the venues change. So it's a smaller community, but definitely Esencia and Antilla.
Esencia and Antilla. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm bearing that in mind next time I come to Barcelona.
Esencia and Antilla, you need to ask me, because sometimes the parties are like we never know how things change here. But also if you just stand up to like in Gothic, there's Bon Bon, that's kind of like it's like a club bar. They always have really good salsa and bachata, but it's more like having a drink and dancing. And if you go to Gracia, it's Gracia Latina. That's also a very small bar, but they have live music. But now with the pandemic, it's very different. So I would say it's not the same. Yeah.
Luke.
Oh, I mean, kind of same as Kelly, really. Like, I think it is like the most amazing thing about the city is that kind of spontaneous, like, I'll just text, I won't have any plans. I'll text a few people and within 10 minutes, we're sitting in a bar that we've all managed to walk to in that time. I think, and like Makis was saying about collaboration and finding a community, I think like if you go to an event and you start talking to the people around you, which happens kind of naturally. There's a group of people who I am kind of like friends with now and had thought were really a super tight group of friends that have been friends for ages. And literally only this week I found out that they all actually met the night I met them at my event. And I just thought that they were already like a group of firm friends. In terms of venues, I mean, Imperfecto, which is where I have my night, is brilliant. Max, who runs it, programs. I walked in and said, I want to do something. And he was like, sure, Wednesdays are free. And I was like, oh, okay, great. He really wants his bar to be full of things. There's a really big variety of things that happen there. La Federica in Pobla Sec for queer performances. They program some really, really good stuff. and again, a great place to just go and meet new people. And there's a new night actually, which I've been to. I think they've got another one tonight called Queerdo, which is happening up in Gracia. And I really enjoyed the first one. And again, just a spirit of mingling, meeting new people, and watching some performances that you would never have stumbled across before. So there would be my 3 recommendations.
Awesome. And what is the soul of Barcelona to you?
I think, to me, it's the ability to have the access to whatever you want to do on your doorstep, and to be able to have that spontaneity to just go and find random things. And to me, it's like it's the good life, especially compared to a city like London, where I lived for like 7 years. Like London, I always compared to like an abusive relationship, where I was like, I still love her, but she hurts me so much.
So well said.
And Barcelona is a kind, emotionally mature partner who understands and gives you space to do what you need to do.
That's a great analogy. I love it.
I just want to add, because like I was living in London for 5 years as well, and I moved from London to Poland and from Poland to here, and I have a lot of friends in London, and they're like, so when are you going to move back? And I'm like, why? Why should I move back? Like, have you ever been here? Like, have you lived here? It's so different. I mean, I would never move back to London. That's just like my experience.
Yeah, I lived in London as well for 4 years, and it was my limit, my deadline.
4 years, exactly. 4 or 5 years is like, I love
like,
London.
okay,
No, I have great
it.
friends, but it was enough. 4 or 5 years was enough.
Yeah.
Makis, tell us about the best things. We have 10 minutes left, just so you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna add another venue of queer nights and stuff. Is Candy Bar. They are doing like every day. They have performances there as well, and now they do some poetry. I have to speak with them because I was thinking to get my event there. It's a very nice venue as well. It's huge, and they do very nice stuff. And I will add Tinta Roja as well, that I was doing my event, but now I'm thinking to change. They have 4 days a week, and it's international events. So they do stand-up comedy, poetry, theater, plays. It's a super nice venue, but now it's a very expensive venue. So I'm thinking to change it. Now Barcelona for me is like the guy said, there are so many stuff here to do. So you can choose how you feel. I mean, you can create your feelings. If you're gonna be sad, you can go somewhere and there will be like an event or something to make you feel sad. You're gonna laugh, you go to stand-up comedy. You can create your feelings. There are so many stuff that you can choose what you want to feel today. I remember once I went to Kelly's event, I wanted to be sad because I was like, I was in a period like, So I was like, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna hear poetry and cry. And then it was night, I go there and all the poems were funny. So I was like, no, sorry, I wanted to cry tonight. So you never know what you'll find there. But you can like choose your emotions in Barcelona, and you can be visible and invisible whenever you want. I mean, it's up to you. You can like be for a month like the most visible person in Barcelona, so you go everywhere and you're like, oh my god, and then you can stay at the back for 2-3 months and nobody maybe will realize it. So yeah, you have the option to be visible or not as well.
And what about the soul of Barcelona?
That's the soul of Barcelona for me, that you can create, you can choose what you want to feel in Barcelona. You can be depressed if you want in a beautiful city, or you can have fun in this beautiful city. You can be with 20 people every day or alone. If you want. Nobody will push you to do anything. I mean,
I love that. I agree. I think like Barcelona gives you a certain level, or it's given me a certain level of autonomy over how my day goes, in a way that other cities that I've lived in really don't. They can dictate the terms of how you live, whereas here you can choose your own path through the day.
And I would add to that, like, I think it's amazing here also because I lived in many different cities, and it's just, you know, people want to meet you, and they, you know, you can call to someone and you can meet up. Many other places is kind of, you need to plan it. Like, that's what we were talking before as well. And it's just like, I see that generally people are happier. Like, it's more positive than other places. I think it's really important. And the weather. I think adds
Yeah,
to
the
that.
weather helps.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The police are horrible.
So we have a couple of minutes left for our podcast, and I would like to take these minutes, you guys, to plug in your events, your projects, or what you're proud of, or what you love. That's I would love to take a couple of minutes for that. So Kelly, what do you plug in?
It's quite an exciting time for us actually, because we're just in the middle of switching to a new venue. It was at Pub Limerick, and now we're at the new Comedy Clubhouse in Elbourne. So I am going to be announcing in the next week or so when the first opening event will be, which should be hopefully in 2 weeks' time on a Tuesday. So please follow me on Instagram. Well, follow the event, sorry, on Instagram, which is @anythingelse_open mic, to find out when the next one's going to be. And please come along. And if you know anyone who wants to perform, then please get in touch.
Kriste.
Well, from the dance community side, as I've said, the pandemic affected a lot. So I've had many projects that I had to cancel. So it's been kind of a hard year, actually 2 years. I mostly also organize events in Estonia and here, but maybe I can just say, like, because I'm also doing other sides. So I'm also a teacher, but I'm also having kind of a beauty business. And I started like a live series on Instagram talking about, it's called Beyond Beauty. And it's not only about talking about skincare or beauty, but also the effect, for example, social media, how it affects our self-esteem and so on. So I've done it I'm trying to do it weekly, and I have different guests every week. And I'm actually going to create a new account for that. But yeah, if you want, you can follow me, Kriste, BU on Instagram, and then you can get more information on that. So anyone who wants to be part of the live series, you're more than welcome.
That's great. Please, guys, join it. It's an interesting project. I love it.
Thanks.
Luke.
So my night Hear This, Escúchame Hear This, it's at Hear This BCN, and it runs on the first Wednesday of every month at Imperfecto. Completely free, like I was saying at the beginning. And in terms of plans for the future, so I'm trying to get some funding together so that I can do maybe quarterly through the year, and a big theatre like the Almeria or something, put on a kind of Escúchame on steroids version, where again it'll be completely free to attend, and the performers will all be able to get paid properly, depending on funding coming through. So if that goes to plan, then look out for that. I also want to make like maybe a sister night this year where it's a bit more I don't like, this night doesn't have any kind of labels on it, but I would quite like to create a more exclusively queer space that's got a performance aspect, but also a dance and party aspect to it afterwards. Because for me, I find a lot of the queer spaces in Barcelona, there's a lot for cis gay men, and there's not so much for the more diverse queer spectrum, and the ones that are about, there's not much partying. They're all quite nice bars where you sort of sit and chat. So I'm going to do that this year at some point. And just to plug one other group as well, if anyone ever comes to the city and Queer Flamenco are doing something, go and see them.
Cool.
Awesome. Makis.
Yes, I've been very busy lately. So yeah, I just finished with the European Championship, so I have some more time, and I'm thinking to start the Poetry Slam again next month in February. I'm looking for a new place, so yeah, it's a bit confusing, but yeah, I'm thinking to start it to go back in February. Then I have the Duende Session Festival Next one should be like end of May. So I have to start working on that as well. And yeah, that's my plans for here. And because I have the World Championship in September, so this is so much work. And I'm trying to write new stuff as well. Yeah, because it's been a long time. I'm writing, but now I want to find the subjects and write like a book under one subject. Normally my poems are like different subjects. So I'm working on that as well to publish something new.
Awesome. So thank you so much for all the sharings that you've done so far. I will ask you afterwards to write down on our group chat the links to so that I can post them as well, your recommendations and the links to your events and projects. We have just 1 minute left. We would like to thank you all for this amazing podcast. And we will end the podcast with Daniel and me, just a kind of a wrapping up the whole session. Daniel.
Yeah, just 10 seconds. Thank you for adding so much intimacy to this world city. We all love Barcelona, but you give it such great safe space. You give it the idea of collaboration. Thank you so much for this. We've learned so much.
Yeah. Thank you. It was amazing. What I would like to say about Barcelona, the moment you stepped into the room, you took my breath away. I think that's the best quote that we can use to end the podcast. It's an amazing city. We always come back with pleasure. Thank you so much for being part of it.